Have you ever had challenges building a healthy workplace culture that supports people's mental health? Well, I'm so excited today that in the Flourishing Workplace podcast, we have Daryl Mcavena, who's going to be talking about how to create healthy workplace culture that supports people's mental health and mental fitness. Please do join us. Welcome to the Flourishing Workplace podcast. Join today's leaders as we explore what it means to thrive at work, with purpose, safety, and strength at the core. Flourishing Workplace is changing the world by changing the workplace. All right. Well, hey, Daryl, it's so great to have you here on our podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, if you don't know, those of you who are watching, we're chatting here today with Daryl Mcavena. He's the president of Performance Freight Management. And so tell us a little bit about your business journey.
Yeah, it was a long journey in the sense that I had no aspirations of being in freight or transportation or logistics. I grew up as a guy that wanted to be in the fitness and sporting industry and graduated university in sports administration. But that changed pretty fast. I got everything went privatization when I was working for the city of Calgary. So I had to come up with a plan and a new journey. And so I started just working in warehouses and, just trying to, get the bills paid and try and learn along the way. But as that journey started, I started getting involved with bigger companies and starting to realize that in transportation and logistics, I had a really good gift, and it was coming up with solutions and planning and organization for, just to come through at the end, right? And so as I was working with different companies, I started to realize that, I can take something from nothing and create an organization. And I did that for multiple companies, and obviously I took a lot of pros along the way, but I had a big basket of cons, things that just didn't work. And in that journey, I kept that basket of cons really close to my chest because it was usually based on customer service, team, and, just the culture. And so when I used that stage of getting out of working for a corporation, I had this transition where, I've done it really well with other organizations. Why don't I try it for myself? And, that's what I did. I started thinking about, man, I could probably create a logistics organization, creating solutions, but building relationships. And that's really what it was about for me. Is I'm big into relationships. I'm big into networking. If you got a sore leg, I probably know somebody.
Right. That's awesome.
If you need something shipped across the world, I know somebody.
You know somebody.
And so it was really, I worked with a big company called Northern Telecom back in the day, and it was Northern Telecom networking around the world. And so for me, that's where I really got my networking and relationship skills, is just focusing on all the different countries and continents, how I was able to connect the dots. And it was exciting to transition into my own business. But you come into a new organization or a new business funding yourself. So there's a lot of responsibilities and a lot of bricks in your backpack that you have to focus on. And that journey is exciting. It does weigh down on you when you're personally responsible for everything, whereas the corporation, they are responsible for everything.
For sure.
But in my little basket of cons, that was the biggest one, is that, I know I'm going to be responsible for this and others. But if you can have a family and a relationship and a culture that surrounds you and supports you in that, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Daryl. And so you have a reputation in the community, which I think is great, around mental health. And I think it's both in your company and the work that you do, and of course in your own life and some of the work you're doing with men. And we're really interested in hearing a bit about that. So can you tell us how that sort of came about?
Yeah, for sure. So we had a situation within my organization that was quite tragic. It included death, embezzlement, a lot of challenges. As I was going through that journey, I was very peaceful through that time, even though I was probably the guy that should have been angry. Dealing with a lot of these forces that could have gone the wrong way for my company and my family.
Right.
And at that time, I'm like, well, if I've got all this in my backpack, or all these challenges that I'm dealing with, what are other men and women dealing with, and how are they dealing with it?
Right.
Because I had a good family and network that I could talk to about things, but what if other people don't? And so the first thing I started doing was looking for support. And so I got involved with a gentleman named Brett Gardner. He's a world-renowned rodeo announcer, that by trade,
Mm.
but he's a highly sophisticated mental health performance trainer, psychologist, counselor.
Okay.
And so he started working with me and my team
Wow.
with mental health. And I started taking a lot of his tools, and obviously seeing some of those tools and using those flags to go, wow, there's a lot of people that are dealing with a lot of things. And I mean, I know that I could probably maybe open up the door for permission of vulnerability to help them talk about that.
Yeah.
And so in that mental health space, we took it from not only my company and building a culture around it's okay to be vulnerable and talk about your feelings and
Right on.
emotions.
Yeah.
But I got motivated enough to say, what's the community doing?
Right.
And so we started with the ride, Randy Chevier and Sheldon Napaschuk,
Okay.
another podcast that I'm involved with. We decided to put on a men's mental health movie night.
Okay.
And the mission around that was to give permission to men to talk about their feelings and emotions, and have the ability to be vulnerable.
Wow.
And so we've done 2 in a row so far.
Okay.
The response has been successful. Just by people actually being vulnerable. We had emails and texts about men talking about things that they normally wouldn't, or they wouldn't even talk.
Right.
And that's a success.
Love that. And I love the concept of permission for vulnerability. I would say, particularly for men, but I think actually with people as a whole. One of the questions I have for you is to be really honest with you, I think the culture of a lot of workplaces is that when a crisis emerges, there's a problem that impacts people's mental health. They kind of look at their EAP program or the EFAP program and they say, hey, we've got you covered there. And they direct you to those places. Not that that's a bad thing, but I love how you internalized it. You said, hey, we've got a problem. We're going to bring somebody in to support that. What was the thing that really shifted for you in that, so that you didn't just follow the default, which is, hey, do you have our benefits program in place? Just tap into that. But you actually said, we need to take this bull by the horns and actually support people.
Well, I think that basket that I had, that con basket was really, valid for me because it mentioned the time when I was going through a divorce.
Okay.
My company back then, not my own, but the company I worked for, there wasn't a whole lot of support there. And I was going through some severe challenges.
Right on.
Going to lose my wife, not be able to see my kids all the time. And here's the program.
Yeah.
They didn't even give me a program.
Right.
Program was, well, I guess you're swimming out there without a life jacket is what happened.
Right.
And so that was the switch for me, is like when we had that situation within my company, I'm like, what is my team dealing with? I'm not going to let them just swim.
Right on. And so as a business owner, like, what do you think some of the business outcomes are of you supporting the mental health of your people? I mean, if you compare the two situations when you went through what you went through compared to what's just been happening with your own company right now, what's the difference? What would you say?
The ability to be vulnerable. They can actually put their hand up and say something. I have a lot of my staff, a lot of my customers, a lot of my vendors that are, when I call them, they're putting their hand up.
Right on.
Because when I say, how are you doing?
Right.
For me, that's not a segue to, hey, how's business? I need some more work.
Right.
When I say, how are you doing? I'm physically asking, how are you doing?
You care.
And I'm starting to get that back.
Right on.
The vulnerability.
I love that. So when you hear the term flourishing workplace, what do you think about?
I believe flourishing workplace is really around the culture of mental health. I think it's, if you can have a company and a workplace that's growing and elevating with permission to talk about your feelings or vulnerability, everybody's dealing with so much every time they come in. How are you going to flourish if you got 75 bricks in your backpack and I got one?
Right.
Maybe I can help take a couple out by just listening.
Love that. Love that. And so when you talk about the idea of a flourishing workplace and this permission to vulnerability, what are one or two things that a business owner or a team leader can do to support that from the position that they're in right now?
Well, I think, number one, and I was probably the guy that didn't do it well when I first started working in corporations and having a team. And then when I started my business, I still wasn't learning how to do it properly. Stop and listen and try and identify the flags.
Right on.
Listen and have some flags. Like, people are reaching out. Like, if somebody says, hey, how's it going, out of the blue on your workforce or on your team, that might mean they're putting their hand up for a reason. They need some help. So trying to capture those flags. So if you listen enough and you're visible enough to see those flags, that's a huge thing. I think would be a takeaway for that.
Yeah. So just having a care beyond just the sort of professional level care or the sort of expectations in polite society, but genuinely caring about what's happening with people.
Yeah, 100%. You got families in your organization that may lose people. So the family members, they're going to have challenges maybe with health.
Yeah,
They're going to have maybe education challenges with teachers and things they're dealing with at school or bullying, whatever it might be.
right on.
You got to be engaged in that
You
with
sure
them.
do. You sure do. Well, hey, that's great. That's awesome. I'm so grateful for you, Daryl. And of course, Daryl, would you just let the audience know how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in just learning a little bit more about your journey?
Yeah, for sure. So email is Daryl, Daryl, at pfmfreight.com, or cell phone, reach out to me live, 587-897-7379.
Right on. Well, hey, for everybody, make sure you tune into our next episode because we're going to keep going with Daryl and we're going to learn a little bit about how we build healthy workplace culture that actually supports people's mental health. So thanks everybody for tuning in. And again, thanks to you, Daryl.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Flourishing Workplace Podcast. Let's keep building spaces where people can thrive. Until next time, lead with purpose and let's let our workplaces flourish. At Flourishing Workplace, we're changing the world by changing the workplace.